So before I give you guys the update of my fish and the tank, I just wanted to give you guys a quick summary of what happened previously before I got the big fish tank. So I started off with a 50-gallon grow-out tank for my monster fish, and I started off with the biker fish, of course, but I also ended up getting into red-tailed barracudas, fire eels, and peacock bass. So I had two peacock bass and two red-tailed barracudas, and I also had two fire eels, and alongside with 3 biker fish, or bichirs, however you want to pronounce them. But with the 50-gallon aquarium, I wanted to make sure that there was as much swimming space for them as possible to grow out into, so I just kept a few live plants and also a large PVC pipe fitting as a hide for them. But of course, later on, as they grew larger, I needed to upgrade to a larger size tank, which later on I ended up buying the 250-gallon aquarium. But sadly, after the transfer from the 50-gallon to the 250-gallon, the bass and the barracudas and one of the fire eels did not survive. But after that, later on, I was able to get 2 new fish to replace them, which one of them is the chocolate albino pleco, which is a really cool fish that I've always wanted but never had the chance to get, but now I do. And also the Jardini arowana, which is a Australian species of arowana, which is a really cool fish and very active too, which is a nice sign. Which also a good thing is that no other issues happened afterwards. But the main problem I had with the setup itself was the filter's outtake pipe, which was extremely long, as you can see in the footage, which probably almost 3 feet in length, which of course I had to change, which I'll show later on in this video. And another issue I had was algae, which, even though of course I had a pleco, but plecos don't do a whole lot of algae eating, which the problem was I let it sit too long and it's extremely thick, which I had to buy a special scraper that's made for acrylic tanks. But then another thing I noticed was that I started getting snails from the live plants that I bought, which to me wasn't too much of an issue because the arowana was eating them, but then for some reason stopped eating them, and they ended up breeding in the hundreds. So good thing is that they were eating some of the algae, but just not quick enough. So with that new scraper that I bought, it was able to clear most of the algae, but not as much as I was hoping to get. But it was good enough for the time. But after scraping the algae for a while, a lot of the scrapings went all over the sand, of course, so like expected. But the snails actually started going on it and eating off of it, which is a good thing, and hopefully the pleco will eventually do the same thing so that all that can clear up over time. But after changing the outtake pipe from the filter, I added some more sand, which made the tank look like a dust storm, which is really cool, kind of. But after adding some clarifier, the water eventually started clearing up, and now I can see everything in the tank. But if you notice, there has been a new growth of algae, or hair algae I mean, and as you can see, it caught some of the shrimp, which of course some of you may think it's kind of ugly and probably should even be in the tank in the first place, but it actually serves the purpose of holding food for the arowana, which is pretty cool since it's going to be staying at the top area. And it actually makes the tank look more natural since it is a freshwater tank, but I was actually hoping that it would grow on the sand more than the surface of the water. But other than that, it still looks cool, in my opinion, and makes, like I said, makes the tank look more natural as a lake or a pond, more than a decorative tropical looking tank. But other than that, everything else looked pretty good, even though there is still a chunk of algae left on the front part of the panel, everything still looks good, and I'm still able to see through the front, just not everything, but at least most of the tank. I'm able to see everything that's going on, and even on the side of the aquarium I'm even able to see what's going on the side, because it is directly next to my bed, so I can always see what's going on in that corner. And also too, what I've noticed later on after I did some changes was the moods that the biker fish were having, mainly the Senegal, but I also noticed the other one, which I'll put the name in the video. That one also started acting about the same, which I believe may be a mating dance, but I'm not too sure. But maybe you guys have more insight on that area, on the fish standpoint. But to me, I thought it was pretty interesting to see, because it's not every day that you would see something like this. But other than that, that's just about what's new with my fish, the tank, and some of the new fish I got, or more like 2 of the new fish I got, and also snails, hair algae, which I'm definitely gonna keep, but see where it grows, and then if it doesn't grow the way I want it to, then I'll just trim it. Hopefully, it'll eventually just stay on the sponge filter, and just continue wrapping around it, and create a pillar of hair algae, which I think would look cool, and then eventually grow on the sand, and then cover that a lot of the area up, so that can be somewhat of a hide for the bikers, or maybe even be like a resting place for them, or even for the snails to hide in, even though they mostly hide underneath the sand or just stay out in the wide open. But other than that, that's just about it that's new, and hopefully you guys were somehow entertained by this video. Hopefully you may be able to take some ideas from my setup, maybe even help me out and give me some ideas, maybe even adding something new to the setup, or anything else, maybe even some information about the mood behavior that's been going on recently with the biker fish. And yeah, and I hope y'all have a good day.